What are the top bad habits that you've seen over and over again?
You've got a lot of experts in the industry that think, hey, I know everything. This worked in the past. I'm just going to keep doing that. They don't realize the market's changed. Marketing should not be focusing on things that sales is not pursuing. And often a sales organization says, hey, we're going to focus on this new technology. It's really important. But the reality is that all their growth daily focus is consumed over here on, say, their conventional business. Market what you can't measure. And you need to look at all elements of that. It's not just the opportunity, it's the awareness, it's the exposure, it's the clicks. You're spending all this marketing budget on an area that sales have been talking to and addressing. However, sales is looking to grow and hold on to probably maybe the traditional market or a conventional growth market, and those budgets aren't aligned. They're spending in two different directions.
Some things just won't die, just as Grigory Rasputin. As the legend goes, the mad monk and unofficial advisor to the Romanovs ate a poison cake, drank poison wine and survived, was shot multiple times and survived, and somehow escaped to the courtyard where he was shot again, before finally meeting his end via drowning in the frozen Nela River. Or so the story goes. Did Rasputin really use his mystic powers to cheat death multiple times despite the efforts of his foes? And as energy marketers, do inefficient habits and tactics seem to do the same thing, making their way into strategy year after year, no matter how dead set you are on sustainable improvement? If you're having trouble separating facts from fiction, fear no more. The truth about sustainable improvement is out there, and we will help you uncover it. Welcome to the HEX-Files with me, your host, Arnaud Dasprez. If you want to believe, you've come to the right place. Einstein said it best. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Yet, as energy marketers with limited time and resources, it's easy to fall into the same trap. Some bad habits never seem to die. And although one inefficient tactic might seem pretty harmless, the cumulative effect of all those inefficiencies is unsustainable. So, how do energy marketers leave behind the inefficiency and move the needle towards sustainable improvement? There is no one better to explore this curiosity with me than Peter Shwets, Chief Digital Officer at ArkHaven Platforms. An entrepreneur and leader with a decades-long track record, Peter is known for spearheading high-efficiently integrated strategy at top energy and industrial services brand. His experience spans digital transformation, engineering, operations, sales, international business, manufacturing and product line management, which gives him a true big picture view on what it takes to unlock true continuous improvement. Welcome to the HEX-Files, Peter. Let's uncover the truth. Well, good morning, Peter. So today we want to talk about bad habits, right? And hopefully give a few pointers to our audience about how to get rid of them, or even make people aware of them. In my 25 years working in energy marketing, I've seen a lot of them, and they have evolved. What about you?
No, likewise, I've seen a lot of bad habits. One of the things that recognizing a bad habit, there's nothing wrong with making a mistake. What's bad is not learning from your mistakes. So, I think that's a pretty relevant theme to today's conversation right now.
I know, and so when in your experience, if you had to take your top 5, your top 10, what are the top bad habits that you've seen over and over again?
I think one of the things comes from experience. Familiarity can can lead to a little bit of situational blindness. You got a lot of experts in the industry that think, hey, I know everything. I know everyone. This worked in the past. I'm just going to keep doing that. And they don't realize that the market's changed, that their client's audience changes, right? That's a big thing to recognize and be agile to. That's probably one of the biggest things I see. I think a lot of people like to do things that they've always done because it makes them feel comfortable, and they feel that there's this fear of missing out if they stop participating in, say, a specific publication or stop attending a specific conference. But if you're spending on traditional channels and you can't measure the result, or if you measure the result and it's not moving in the right direction, You've got to have the courage to say, hey, I want to change. And that's one of the biggest things. People spend in traditional areas that they don't measure, so they don't know, or they spend in traditional areas, they measure their exposure. And then it's like, okay, you're not getting the results. So do you want to stop doing this? That's kind of where, you don't spend a dollar unless you get ROI. And that's kind of the root of all of this when it comes to bad habits.
When we're talking about bad habits, and also an element of marketing and sales efficiency. So how would you define kind of an alignment between marketing and sales efficiency?
Yeah, I think that, there has to be a very tightly coupled relationship there. There's a symbiosis. Marketing should not be focusing on things that sales is not pursuing. And often a sales organization says, hey, we're going to focus on this new technology. It's really important. But the reality is that all their growth, or, their daily focus is consumed over here on, say, their conventional business. So you're spending all this marketing budget on an area that sales has been talking to and addressing. However, sales is looking to grow and hold on to, probably maybe their traditional market or a conventional growth market, and those budgets aren't aligned. They're spending in two different directions. The other thing is, that both these organizations compete for resources. So, if the resources aren't aligned, if we're not working closely and quickly and efficiently with the sales organization, there's a lot of friction and just almost separate messages that get conveyed to your client, which can be very confusing. And there's nothing worse than confusing your client.
I think there's definitely an alignment, and sometimes marketing is starting marketing something that might be ready for sale in the future. For example, a lot of new energy products in our field are not completely ready to sell, but there's an awareness element that marketing staff ahead of time. But when it comes down to competing for resources of sales and marketing, usually, in my experience, it's a lot of what is ready for sale today, the traditional business. And we always, have the analogy fishing, hunting versus some other marketing expenses. Have you seen that a lot in your jobs?
100%, right? A sales team, your operational P&L is measured month over month, quarter over quarter. So having the conviction and the alignment and the buy-in from your sales and operational organization that we're going to talk about things we're going to do next year, we're still going to take care of today and our month over month responsibilities. That's a big test, and then you really have to test that buy-in. A lot of people will say they're going to do it, but one of the things I've seen from organization is when operations and sales is willing to support the budget for marketing, when they're willing to take it on, that's that acid test that says, hey, everybody is singing from the same sheet of music. We're all in this together. We know what we need to do today, and we also need to know what to do for tomorrow, what's important.
So in your opinion, marketing and sales budgets should be addressed at the same time?
100%. 100%. It's the same resource. It's generating the same ROI. It's almost a time value of money problem that you're solving. There's a send that marketing has to do to make sure that you've got awareness of the current services, you hold on to existing business, you address what's ready now, but then there's the marketing budget that says, hey, next year, we're not going to be scrambling. Next year, we're going to be prepared. We're going to have the awareness of our services, our product, our brand, when those solutions are ready. And those organizations have to be aligned when they manage those communication.
I agree. Let's talk a minute about sustainability. And by sustainability, I do not mean only net zero goals, but doing more with less. And that makes sense in a marketing and sales concern as well. So if a brand wants to market and sell more sustainably, what, in your opinion, are some key elements to consider?
Yeah, it's all about the data. It's kind of ironic. You're doing all this work, you're doing all these things, but if you can't measure your result, you can't measure your benefit, you might be spending in the wrong areas. So, and just like, you can't manage what you can't measure, you shouldn't market what you can't measure. And you need to look at all elements of that lead, right? It's not just the opportunity, it's the awareness, it's the exposure, it's the clicks. If you're not seeing benefit, in a campaign, you've got to have the conviction to fail fast, make those agile course corrections. Conversely, if you're spending in an area that you thought was kind of just, something we need to do for awareness and it's gaining a lot of traction, do you have the resources to double down and benefit from how the market is responding to a specific campaign? So that tightly coupled, hey, I'm going to try this. I want to see what my exposure is. I'm getting the qualified leads. I'm getting the awareness with my clients. The messaging is resonating. Being able to capitalize on that iteration, that's really, really important so that you can do more with less, right? It's spending the same dollar, but making sure that dollar stretches as much as possible from an exposure standpoint.
And how many touch points do you think marketing team, sales team need to have on an ongoing basis in order to actually be able to be responsive, look at the KPIs and address them from a proactive standpoint?
From a touch point standpoint, it's stuff you need to look at very quickly after you have that campaign exposure. If you're launching an ad on LinkedIn, if you're launching, a campaign, advertising a conference, on multiple websites and Google Ads, and you don't have the ability, almost real time, to make those course corrections and see what kind of exposure you have, you're missing out. And it's kind of a situation where 20 years ago, you didn't have the tools that could give you that real-time feedback that you're placing bets in the right areas or you're placing bets in the wrong areas. Today you do. And the companies that take advantage of what technology can do for you in terms of knowing that your marketing communication, is benefiting your clients, is benefiting your organization, and take advantage of those short cycles and quick awareness. You're not taking advantage of tools that are ready now to help your marketing budget, help your branding and communication.
And you mentioned data, and I'm 100% with you. Data is key. Have you seen the opposite problem where there's too much data or people react really negatively to a bad set of data on a week-to-week basis, but they actually forget to wait and see, have a little bit more of a patience into how specific activities can convert?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. You need to understand what data you're collecting, right? If you're obsessed about marketing qualified leads, and you're not paying attention to just general awareness of your campaign, because it might be a longer term sale. You might be looking at technology that's going to be ready in 2 or 3 quarters from now. You're looking at the wrong details. You have to be working with the right marketing professionals to understand, okay, what's the composition of data that I can receive? What's possible? And what things are going to help me make the best decisions short term, medium term, and long term? And if you're looking at the data thinking this is a long-term correlation, you could be making some bad decisions from data that's actually very good.
That's true. And on the same token, today, with all the marketing tools we have, all the data we have, all the tactics that are at our disposal, there's really a strong push under, keywords. Like, I mean, people talk a lot more about buyer personas. Or do you think there is a very clear understanding between marketing and sales into who they sell to, or how they sell?
I think this is an area where there's a lot of improvement to be had. You know, your clients are changing just as fast as you're trying to evolve and, deliver new services and value from your business. The composition of the audience at your clients is changing. So, maybe historically you're dealing with, a lead subject matter expert on a technical side working in, say, a facility or a plant. And then all of a sudden you've got supply chain involved that's, they're not listening to years of experience. They're not listening to, hey, this is the most sophisticated, robust, comprehensive technology or solution. What they're looking for is, you can perform on time, every time you're performing at a service level and at a budget that's predictable, that that they're seeing, year over year cost reduction to. That audience is changing. So before, hey, I need performance, I need execution. And now all of a sudden you need performance execution, and you need to be able to show the efficiency and the year over year efficiency and effective cost reduction as a result. That audience that's changing is very, very important, because you might be sending a message that is falling on deaf ears because, yeah, your expert in the plant is no longer making the decision. It could be dominated by supply chain or a collection of various individuals from those segments of your client's business: supply chain, technical, as well as safety and environmental performance.
Especially in our field, in the energy space, where the sales cycle usually are extremely long and somewhat complex. this is an element to definitely look at. Do you think that the marketing teams are actually looking at all those different persona within this sales cycle or buyer journey and address them, or do you still feel that they are focusing on maybe one or two and completely forget about the others?
I think it could be a function of collaboration. I've seen a lot of times where, marketing and sales and the effort to kind of have that effective collaboration work tightly together. Sales can be obsessed with, where they truly love their technology and believe in their technology and the value and the performance, but they're not talking to the audiences now that are in their client's organization that have got a bigger hand in making those decisions. Right. So your sales team might say, hey, I need to make sure that all my marketing collateral, all my campaigns select my on-site subject matter experts, and they might not be aware of the bigger part that maybe corporate or supply chain from the overall organization plays in making that decision. So they're only delivering part of that message.
There's also a bad habit I'm seeing from a marketing department standpoint. Usually, the marketing department are fairly small compared to the rest of the organization in energy. But it's the focus on external marketing, where really, when you're looking at, there is a lot of education to be made to the sales team as far as understanding how to sell and how maybe focus more on some other products that they may not have a knowledge on. That needs to be taken care of by the marketing department and really teaching the sales department, the sales team, how to sell their product, even if it could be considered sales training. I've seen it more and more being some initiative taken by marketing. How do you see that issue in the different organization you've been interacting with over the years, and how important it is for you to really look inwards, look internally on how to sell and what is the marketing need there compared to just pushing out a message outside through trade shows and any other tactics?
I think that's a very, very important observation. Organizations need to understand how their funnel is led when it comes to business and how they interact with their client. So many times, an organization thinks, hey, I need to be at this conference. I need to be at, this trade show, this pipeline exhibition. But from a practical standpoint, they could be very technician led from a sales process standpoint. They can be very, on the site, one-to-one individual led when it comes to selling. So yeah, you can send these messages externally, but when the people are in front of the decision makers and in the company's client space, and they're not aligned with what we need to do now, what we need to do in 6 months, what new technologies, what maybe how we're refactoring the business to be maybe more environmentally focused, and they're not sending that message consistently, the client can also be very confused. Typically at the higher level, supply chain, corporate, they see the branding that happens at the trade shows online. But then when the message and the actual connection happens on site in person, there's two different things that are being said. So that internal marketing, making sure, and there's an individual I worked with in my past, he always had this great term, singing from the same sheet of music. Great organizations have that internal alignment, making sure that you remember that your greatest resource is your people, and ensuring your people understand, okay, this is how we're going to talk. This is what we're going to promote. This is how we perceive the value of our organization, what value that delivers to our clients. That's in some cases more important. And maybe you should be spending 70% of your marketing efforts on that internal campaign for a given phase of technology versus, 70% externally. That can deliver the biggest result.
For me, it would be, and we talked about several bad habits about what you started with, but this internal marketing being somewhat either pushed to another department or pushed to someone else, let's call it sales training, is the one bad habit that people should actually look. 70% looking at internal, what we can call internal marketing. We can call it sales enablement. We can call it many, many different things. And I'm a true believer that sales marketing are one and need to be working very, very closely together. Don't you believe that this internal marketing topic is maybe one of the bad habit that really, if our listener today had to take a point out, is really looking at, am I really clearly messaging my internal sales force, and they really have a clear understanding of how to sell, who to sell to, and what works and what doesn't work?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point to highlight. A lot of organizations, they know it's important. So episodically, they might say, this year, we're going to develop our internal sales marketing campaign. They create this nice stack or PowerPoint, whatever it is, and they now check the box saying, okay, our sales training is done. But our world is changing. The agility that you have to have in terms of communicating to your clients, the agility that you have to be able to interact with your internal workforce and your experts in your organization so that you're giving them the updated information on where your competitive benefit is, where the value you provide to your clients, resides. If you have a system that can only be updated once a year, you could be, 364 days out of date when it comes to messaging from your people. So that all has to be refactored, and even how you deliver that messaging and that alignment with your organization.
No, that's true, Peter. One thing you made a point a few minutes ago was marketing people being really into MQLs, MALs, I mean, whatever terminology they use internally. How brand awareness, what's the role of brand awareness in the funnel and in sales more specifically?
Yeah, and brand awareness is huge, right? If there's this intangible that exists in the market with your clients, with the employees that move from your organization to your client's office to a competitor's office, where that brand awareness gets you in the door. That brand awareness is immediately associated with safety or performance and on-time delivery and trust and loyalty and responsibility. If you're not focusing on those intangibles, and you're just myopically focusing on, okay, here's the latest service we have and it's great, right? It makes it difficult to break the ice as you're launching new services, new technology in 2026 and beyond. So, fortifying your brand, strengthening the equity and strengthening the awareness of what your brand brings to your clients and what's important from, your company's leadership, from your stakeholders, from your employees' side, and not communicating that can be a very, very big bad habit that, you're just missing the opportunity to share what makes your company great.
No, and that's true. And I'm making a stance here of, when I tell my clients always, awareness, awareness, awareness. Don't focus only on leads. But if we had to give some suggestions and recommendation to Marcom teams, how do we make them sell more of a relationship? All the elements you're saying, the intangibles, and make it part of their day-to-day marketing job over the transaction. It's not a transaction, it's a relationship, it's a partnership type.
Yeah, I think this is where when you sell the brand and the brand has a reputation for continuous innovation, safety, right? Especially right now with as much focus as the world has and kind of the players in the industry have around ESG performance. If you're not talking about those elements that aren't associated to a specific service, then you're not messaging kind of the completeness of what your organization offers to your clients. Because your clients, you've got the greatest technology, the greatest service, the latest, valve or, mechanism that you're going to take to market. But if you don't fortify that technology with, you're the safest, you're the most environmentally conscious, right? You're on time every time, right? With the right tool in the right place. If you're not putting some of those things that don't really have to do with service, but have to do with your culture, you're missing the opportunity to create stickiness. Your clients want to know that, hey, I'm working with somebody that isn't satisfied just being here today. Continuous improvement, continuous performance, excellence in the areas that they value, right? Being able to communicate that creates a long-term partnership where your client now is not just willing to say, hey, I want you for your conventional service that you've offered me in the last 6 months, 2 years, but we've got a problem. We don't know who can solve it. Can you help us? When you start having those conversations, because your brand awareness creates that kind of messaging for your client, Now you're creating the stickiness and the relationship that makes it fun, that benefits the industry, that benefits your people, benefits your client.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's really some key points, and this is where there's a really a strong element, because we're back also to branding, which is something that has been completely overlooked. Not too much today, but over the past 10, 15, 20 years, I mean, branding was having a couple of beers, drawing a logo and figuring out a name, and the drunker you get, the better the name sounds. I mean, I don't know if you had this experience in
Napkins
your
are
process.
basically the most important tool in these exercises,
I
right? Because
know.
that's where all the problems get solved, on the back of a napkin.
I know. I mean, napkins are one element that definitely deserve their space in the Marketing Hall of Fame. But on that specific topic of tools, uh, there is a lot of tools today, a lot of technology. Martech stack. Martech becomes, I don't know if it is in the Oxford Dictionary yet, but definitely it will end up being. So, what role does Martech play in kind of helping brands enhance their marketing today and sales efficiencies?
This is a real asset. If you don't have the tools in place that can confirm you're getting views, that you're getting leads, that, where people are spending their time on your website, you're kind of playing blind, right? Everyone likes to compete, but who wants to, play a baseball game and not keep score for 4 hours, right? This is where Martech comes in play, right? It allows you to keep score. Do you want to get better? Do you want to fail fast? Do you want to double down where you're having success? When you've got the tools that allow you to understand that, and understand that near real time, now you've got a competitive advantage. You mentioned before, Arnaud, it's all about sustainability, doing more with less, right? The right Martech stack, the right experts that are building your marketing and data ecosystem, they allow you to react faster. They allow you to trust. They allow you to say, hey, I've got the evidence that I'm doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing, and, focus your efforts accordingly.
I know you have a strong background in technology, Peter. In terms of buying the right Martech stack, you mentioned the right one. Is it a matter of where you are in your marketing stages, about your culture? What are the key elements that drive kind of the recommending or implementing the right stack?
And it has to do with your maturity as an organization, right? Are you willing to make decisions based on data? It has to do with the complexity of your organization. How robust are you? How global are you? How diverse is your portfolio? And it also has to do with the fact that, you know, are you willing to use that technology to deliver efficiency in your organization, right? When you want to deliver consistent branding on everything that you touch, if you want to ensure that your content, that your logos, that you reach your clients and you can get all that information in one place. If you're willing to do that, and you're willing to make those decisions, then working with the right marketing professional to say, okay, this is the right solution for you. You need a headless CMS. You want to have this in your analytics department. You want to use this for your CRM platform, and this is how you want to mine it, right? It's an ecosystem. And I think one of the things that's a benefit today is there's so many good partners out there that you can do it more economically, more affordably than you could before. But conversely, if you don't have the right expert that can guide you, you can get quite often lost in kind of the technical pool of solutions out there, and spend your time kind of developing and moving things around rather than focusing on, hey, where do I get ROI? Right? You need to be obsessed about that. You're obsessed about, how do I measure brand awareness? How do I measure that a new technology and how I'm talking to clients about this new technology is gaining traction? If you're not looking at some of those big themes and saying, does my Martech stack allow me to make better decisions, that I'm moving in the right direction? Then you're making mistakes. And those are some bad habits where just because you have the tools doesn't mean you're actually benefiting from them.
No, that's true. I've seen too many time clients being sold by one of those big Martech players, some enterprise solution that they never really implement, and it's almost like overwhelming. And some that actually stayed pretty agile, and were able to really push that technology to what it was, supposed to do. But again, I don't think it's against maybe having the wrong team or everything. I think there is a lot now in the whole marketing sphere it makes building a team difficult. So it brings that question around, is marketing something that we need to look at, maybe outsourcing, or what makes a good kind of mix between a inside team, outside team, full outsource? What are your take on that, or in order to actually be able to evolve, break the bad habits, and potentially, I mean, definitely show some really strong ROIs?
This is a great question. I would probably answer this question very differently 6 years ago than I would today. Our world has changed. How we collaborate has changed. The diversity and the amount of solutions that are coming out week over week is phenomenal. How artificial intelligence is flowing into this space to deliver further efficiency, creativity, and just helping you learn what you didn't know that you didn't know. That's a big component. And organizations, let's face it, they should be obsessed about how they bring value to clients. That's where their investment is. Today, with the effectiveness of collaboration and how the world has become so much smaller, having a good portion of your business outsourced to an external marketing firm, so that you've got, you could go anywhere from 100% outsource to kind of ratios where you're 20% internal, 80% external. You benefit from partnering with an external resource that sees multiple industries. They're the ones that obsess every day, just like you obsess about delivering value and performance to your clients. They obsess about what technology delivers efficiency, what technology ensures that they've got the best insights, the best metrics, the best KPIs, and what's trending in terms of how the industry is communicating, how the industry is making decisions. So, I would definitely always want to have someone that's inside my organization collaborating with me that sees the bigger ecosystem than just working within my space. Because the nature of working inside an organization is you are myopic. You live in your four walls. You don't work with your competitors. You don't work with the other industries. Having a marketing partner that sees those perspectives and sees those trends that often emerge in other industries before they move to your industry, you're missing an opportunity if you don't have some sort of blended component of an external marketing team working with your organization.
And you mentioned AI, and that's a good point. I kind of wanted to have a quick chat about, when you talk to a very small marketing team. The first thing is, with AI, I can do a lot more with less. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to optimize it. But I know that the easiest thing that I see every day is, I don't need anybody to help me write, because now I can ask AI to write on my behalf. I mean, I know it's a bit, I mean, people figure out that that's not really the case. But what have you seen as far as people adopting AI or being scared by AI, and how do you think that fits into a marketing department?
AI is like anything. It's a trending tool that's out there. It's having some good use cases and it's having some poor use cases. You know, I'm not a big advocate of saying, "Hey, I've got a tool. Let's go find work for it." I think where companies need to consider AI is, listen, what am I trying to do? What problem am I trying to solve? And then take a step back and saying, okay, this is where my organizations have value. Can I layer an AI-based solution to deliver efficiency or deliver additional insights when I'm trying to solve that problem? Because even on a weekly basis, right, I've got companies that say, "Hey, I've got this latest AI tool for you." I don't need an AI tool. I'm here to solve problems for myself. I'm here to solve problems for my clients. That's where the value resides. So, AI is really like anything. It's a tool, and if you've got a very good workflow, you've got a very good ecosystem where you've got good data, you've got timely data, you've got the granularity in your data where you can actually start to say, okay, this product line is getting this many MQLs. This is the brand awareness of this product line, and you've got that data foundation. Now you've got something that AI can work on. AI can't pull rabbits out of hats. It's meant to automate. It's meant to provide insights on data. So if you really invested and you've got a very well structured information system, now you've got something that AI can work on and deliver value. So, it all dovetails together. If you focus on the problem to solve, you've got a well organized and well curated, good master data management in your operational data. Now AI, very quickly with less expense, can start providing value to your organization.
And I agree. I've seen a lot more demand from our existing customers as what should I look at in terms of AI, whether AI tools, or what should I look to improve my marketing efficiency? How should I optimize AI? And that's kind of what we tell them. We tell them there's an element of automation. There's an element of research. For example, we've been pretty successful at using AI to accelerate the development of playbooks, for example, because there is this element of looking at and being able to query the data and actually analyze it faster and do a faster output. Also for a segmentation and what are the top 1,000 potential customers that are close to us from different level of whether it's a LinkedIn network or different CRM data. It's really what you say. And then there is some of our more, I would say, not maybe advanced, but that are looking at even dedicating a certain element of their budget into AI implementations, the same way they had, maybe it's a bit gimmicky, but we used to develop apps for everything. Everything needed to be an app. Have you seen that also on your end? The people really looking at, okay, we have this tool. I'm going to dedicate some budget on improving my workflows or doing specific things, but I don't really know what it is, but I'm going to invest and figure it out. Have you seen that in
I've seen that.
marketing?
Companies, they want to show and they want to have data points that they're modernizing. It's a little dangerous because they want to say, hey, I'm using AI, but it might not be around a use case. So the reason they're making these decisions, there's so much pressure to say, hey, I'm using advanced tools, that they would rather not wait, saying I'm using advanced tools somewhere within my workflow, right? Leave it ambiguous. It still sends the right branding awareness message they want, but they're still not ready to say, hey, I've got the data set that I can actually uncover value on, but that does happen, just like companies needed to have an app, right? The app didn't do a lot other than maybe go to their website and allow you to contact them, but hey, there was an app. So again, the app was more about awareness, another touch point for your client, as opposed to, okay, this is actually doing work.
No, and I agree. I think it's a little bit like everybody had to start or say I'm doing account-based marketing, knowing that the true account-based marketing is a culture shift, and they try and they dedicate a little bit, and then they either embrace it or just stop it. But before they even went all the way in, I think it's a little bit the same today with the kind of this AI. But
Yeah, you got to really obsess about the problem to solve, right? A lot of companies get a lot of data. A great use case is, if you've got a lot of data that your organizations needs to use as effectively a library and knowledge base, AI can be a tool that says, hey, instead of going and looking at these 500 surveys that we filled out as a company, you can actually train an AI bot to learn it, and then you can ask the bot, and the bot will respond based on knowledge it learns, right? There's an efficiency use case. Again, I'm trying to solve a problem. I've got all this value over here. How do I extract the value? If you're forming your kind of your problem solving methodology in that fashion, I think it's more effective then to say, hey, AI is going to help me there, or it's just it's a cool distraction. It's ticking a box from an awareness standpoint, but it's not driving value. So, that methodology I think can be a lot more beneficial in saying I'm investing in AI and I'm getting a return on investment from it.
No, I agree, 100%. We've covered a lot of ground here in discovering some and talking about bad habits and looking at new ways of being more sustainable in terms of marketing practices. If you had to have a kind of a closing advice on marketing team that's passionate, and I think you use the word obsessed, which I like. I mean, I like the obsession aspect because you want results, you obsess about doing something, it makes sense. But what would be kind of an advice for really sustainable improvement of your marketing? So kicking those bad habits, and what would be kind of your last set of advice there?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. A lot of companies, they know that they need to sell more, they need to increase their efficiency and increase their margins. They need to penetrate new markets, and you look at what you've done, and it might not be working. So the whole thing we've talked about during this call is, if you're going to do something, can you measure it? Is it helping? Is it hurting? Is it neutral? Okay, that's great. But if you're not willing to trust the data and be willing to change, if you don't have the infrastructure that allows you at a speed and at an efficiency that you can actually sustain, that you can check your actions and get feedback in a timely manner that you can make decisions from and make corrections, then you're just repeating everything that you've been doing in the past. So many companies, I want to change, I want to do this. But then when the data tells them that they're not getting the result that they thought they were getting, there's like, I'm not ready to change. I'm not ready to shift my spend. I'm not willing to stop advertising this organization. I'm not willing to take the budget that I spent on this one trade show that's not delivering a result and go over here. Maybe it's fear of missing out. Maybe it's just change and tradition and executives that are obsessed with a certain platform or a certain kind of audience or publication. But if you're not willing to change and you're not willing to trust your data, you might not get the benefit.
No, that's 100% clear. Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you. Now that we've investigated the truth about sustainable improvement, it's your time to share kind of your truth. Where can our listener find more about you and what you do, Peter?
No, I appreciate it, Arnaud, and appreciate the questions today. Excellence and insights on marketing, its alignment with the organization. We touched on it throughout the entire call, data, right? And that's a good segue and dovetails into what ArkHaven Platforms is about. We are a cloud-centric development house. Our whole obsession is ensuring clients maximize the value of their operational data, right? And maximizing the value of operation data means you can use it in your Martech stack. You can use it to convey the value you deliver to your clients. So many clients out there, they want value, they want efficiency. We say we're faster, we say we're better, but you can't measure it. What happens if you're the company that works for your clients and you can say, here's my data. This is my operational performance. I'm getting better, I'm getting faster, I'm getting more efficient week over week, month over month, right? That just confirms value. Again, we talked about doing something in marketing. Does it apply to the end? Does it deliver value? Same thing in business. Our company is obsessed about, if you're going to do this in business, is it improving? Is it delivering an ROI? Is it helping you get better? Right. So, when it boils down to it, there's, with all the buzz around AI, with everything that's going on right now, we want to make sure that companies are working within the digital strategy. They've got high quality data that is available to deliver value and efficiency to themselves and to their clients. They can measure it, right? And they can confirm the benefit. There's no point in doing something if you can't measure it and can't confirm that it's been delivered. ArkHaven Platforms, we're a bit of a boutique firm. We obsess around being agile, scalable, and everything we do needs to have an ROI against it. One of our credos is if, don't develop it, and invest in it if it doesn't deliver a result that improves the efficiency of your business, and don't develop it if you can't measure that it's actually delivering that efficiency.
Well, thank you very much.
No, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the HEX-Files, as we investigate the biggest curiosities in energy marketing so that you can separate fact from fiction. Curious how your brand ranks across 6 areas of energy marketing? Take our free assessment at hexagroup.com/podcast. And until next time, fear no more. The truth is out there.